Hello, and thank you for joining us. My name is Nicole Scott, and this is Chamber University with the Lima Allen County Chamber of Commerce. We appreciate you being here today, and we'd also like to reach out and say thank you to our sponsors, Shakely and Perry ProTech, for providing this program to our community. And today we have a really special guest today. Her name is Jennifer Brogee. She's president and CEO of The Meeting Place, for those of you that may not know her. And she has done some pretty unique things in the past few years due to the pandemic. And we thought that it would be awesome to hear how she was able to pivot her brick and mortar into e-commerce. So please welcome Jennifer Brogee. I will be watching the chat box, so you're more than welcome to chat any questions that you may have. And we will answer Q&A as it goes, or I will watch it so that we can keep up on those questions at the end of the session. So it's all yours, Jennifer. Thank you for being here today. We appreciate it and look forward to your interesting topic and what we can learn from you. So it's all yours.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for inviting me. And if you have any questions, please do not feel hold yourself back. Please go ahead and put the questions in the chat box or raise your hand, and I'm happy to interrupt the presentation to answer questions. So let me share my screen. I'll jump right in. Just one second here. All right, just looking for the share button here. There it is. Okay, so hopefully you can all now see my screen, and you can see kind of a picture of the Meeting Place in the background. So if you're not familiar with the Meeting Place on Market, it is a coffee house and bakery that has been around since 2003. So here's a picture of what the inside looked like back in 2003. So I don't know if any of you visited during that time. You might remember kind of a much different look. You can see there my brother and my husband in the background. We were doing, I think, a tasting before we opened. So when we opened at the time, there had been a coffee shop in Lima called Jabberwocky, and it had closed a couple years before. So we thought, you know what, there's a gap in the market. Let's go ahead and open a coffee shop. And we decided to open it downtown because we really wanted to be part of making the downtown a destination. And we found a beautiful building that had been built in 1917. So you can see this was our original look, and things have changed a lot since then. All right, so what I want to kind of go over today, I want to tell you a little bit about our story and our journey over the last 19 years. But I also want to make it generic for those of you who aren't necessarily in a retail business. So I want to talk a little bit about how you can kind of watch for what's changing in your industry and adapt to trends in order to kind of recreate yourself, because things are changing quickly. I also teach entrepreneurship at the University of Northwestern Ohio. And in one of the textbooks that I use, it writes that industries kind of usually reinvent themselves every 20 years. So the pace of change is really speeding up. And you can't just stay in one kind of business model for the whole life of your business and succeed. So when we were founded, we were considered a brick and mortar business. We were in the brick and mortar restaurant industry. We were in the coffee house industry. We were considered a quick serve restaurant. So we served wraps and soups. We had dine-in and we had takeout. And this picture is also from some of our earlier years. You can see that we had a printed menu in the background and just a really like an old computer in the front. So it has changed a lot. One thing that's interesting, and it's the reason why I listed the industries that we are in, is that, whoops, I'm sorry. I opened the chat and that was a bad idea. Okay. Up to 30% of the profitability of your business is actually determined by the industry that you are in. So when I first started a coffee shop in 2003, I had majored in business at Anderson University. So I had a business management degree. And a lot of what my business management degree taught me was how to operate a business. But I did not learn the differences between industries. So when I opened the coffee house, I was a little bit naive about how much control I had over the profitability, because it's actually can be limited based on the industry. So what do you do if you're already in an industry and you find out, well, there's some strengths and weaknesses about the industry that I didn't really anticipate? What do you do at that point? So I've put together 4 steps to really assess and adjust your business model as you go. The first one is to look at what are the strengths and weaknesses of the business model. And a lot of these are often outside of your control. So based on the business model I had chosen, brick and mortar or coffee shop, there were strengths and weaknesses that I had to operate within. So looking at what are those strengths and weaknesses? Are there ways that you can mitigate the weaknesses and still stay true to your mission? And that's kind of what our story is about, is how we have tried and attempted to mitigate our weaknesses and reinvent ourselves. How are my customers buying? Do I need to change the strategy on how I reach my customers? Because that changes frequently. And then what trends are my customers embracing? And do I need to embrace those trends? So the first one I want to go over are, what are the strengths and weaknesses of the business model? When you're looking at strengths and weaknesses, you need to analyze the industry. So there's some questions that you need to ask. How easy is it for new competitors to get started? So for a coffee shop, it's actually pretty easy. I'll be honest with you. It's actually pretty easy to open a coffee shop. I'm not saying it's simple. What I'm saying is it doesn't require $1 million. It doesn't require some high tech degree that you have to go to school for 4 years or some special knowledge. And there are suppliers all over the country that you can find to sell to you. How tight is the competition? And one interesting thing is at Starbucks, their sales is about 10 times as much as the sales of the top 5 coffee shops put together. So if you take the top 5 chains, add all their sales, multiply it by 10, you're going to get close to Starbucks. So it's an industry with Starbucks as a really big player. Then we have a lot of smaller players and a lot of independent shops and some smaller chains. You need to look at the industry. Do you have control over your supply chain? Do your customers have a lot of buying power? And is it easy for customers to find a substitute? So with a coffee shop, it is actually easy for customers to find a substitute, not necessarily the same quality or premium brand of coffee, but you can make your coffee at home. You can buy it at the gas station. You can drive through Dunkin' Donuts, go to McDonald's. There's a lot of different options for you when you need caffeine. You don't have to get the $5 latte. Then what is the average profit margin and what is the average revenue for the industry? Because unless you're doing something amazing, you're probably not gonna beat the average too much. All right, so you have to think about those things. And so I've been thinking about those things for the past 19 years to kind of tweak the business model and decide, it's tough. If any of you have been in the food business, you know that the margins are very tight. Okay. And so our margins have been very tight from the beginning. And we were always thinking like, what happens when our profit doesn't meet expectations? What do? We start analyzing everything, analyzing every move that we make. What are the first 2 things that we look at, would you say? If anyone wants to chime in, I'll give you an opportunity for audience participation. If you are running a business or you're managing a business and your profit doesn't meet expectations, what are some of the things that you look at? And you can just type it in the chat there if you have any thoughts. And I also have our bakery manager here sitting with me, Amanda. Say hi, Amanda. So you can chime in too if you want. Okay, price and product costs, good. How much are you charging? Yeah, so a couple others. what do I need to do to fix operations? Like, what am I doing wrong? How can I market better? Maybe my product mix is wrong, et cetera. And those are all definitely very valid questions to ask. But sometimes the problem is neither. Okay. Sometimes the problem is the industry changed on you and you didn't know that happened. New competitors came into the market. Maybe you overestimated the market at the very beginning and you can't really get more of a market doing what you're doing. And so those, after a while of asking a lot of questions and realizing our limitations, because we are a destination coffee shop, but you have to be willing to go to downtown Lima. You have to be willing to work hard to find a place to park. It's not like we're simple to get to. So those were a lot of our weaknesses. And we didn't have a lot of control over all of that because there is parking nearby. But again, overcoming that desire to have parking right next to the door or to drive through, we don't have the ability to add a drive through or put parking right next to the door. So really the problem could be outside of your control. And that's kind of what we were starting to think. And then when COVID hit, we thought, then when COVID hit, it was completely out of our control, which I'm sure a lot of you were in that same boat. All right, so we started assessing and thinking, okay, what are the strengths of this model and what are the weaknesses? Well, the strengths, not a lot of capital needed to start. We didn't have competition when we started. We were a whole brand new thing in Lima. There are good profit margins for the coffee drinks. It is attracted to part-time workers. We've had some amazing part-time workers over the years. We have always had applicants that are interested in working for us. And it's a model that is rich in community engagement. So we've really loved being part of the community, and people have been very supportive of our business. So those are some of the strengths. Some of the weaknesses of the coffee shop business model, like I mentioned earlier, it is easy for new competitors to enter. In the food business, the margins are tight because you have something that expires and food costs go up and down every week, just like gas prices do. So staying on top of the food costs can be tricky. In a brick and mortar industry, you have high building and maintenance costs. And we even exacerbated that by buying a building built in 1917 that is about 12,000 square feet. So that's on us. But there's a lot of building and maintenance costs, no matter what type of building you have. High turnover in the industry because we would get great part-time people and then they would move on to their next adventure. The walk-in traffic ebbs and flows, but your fixed costs remain the same in the coffee shop model. So for example, in July, a lot of people leave town, don't blame them, they go to the beach or wherever. We still have to have a base amount of expenses. Our expenses don't just totally decline when everybody leaves town. Okay, so we still have to maintain fixed costs. Our product expires and customers have to come to us. So that's some of the weaknesses of the model that we're in. So we thought, okay, what could we do better? Are there ways that we can mitigate the weaknesses, but still stay true to the mission? Okay. And we had started doing this before the pandemic, but the pandemic really jump-started it. So we thought, okay, what are some things that we can do to mitigate these weaknesses? Well, the first thing we did in 2015 is we started selling gift boxes on Etsy. And we had a college intern at the time, and he thought, we were talking about, well, we have all these baked goods. We would love to be able to offer them to a larger audience with baked goods and coffee. And he said, well, I'll just make some and put them on Etsy. So our original listings were pretty weak. Yeah, they looked pretty bad, but we still sold some. So we're like, wow. We were happy that we sold, I think, 20 during Christmas. And now we're up to about 10,000. So the first year was very slow, but it was kind of mitigating some of those weaknesses. We didn't have to get customers to come to our shop. We could ship them. So now our customers were all over the country. we were able to connect with people who care about like the higher end premium coffee, and they like the fact that we don't use preservatives in our baked goods. And that's a smaller percentage of people, but when you add them up across the country, it becomes significant. Okay, so we kind of had this narrow audience that really wanted that type of good, and now we were able to kind of open that up. It also kept the bakery more busy, and we were able to look at having more full-time people instead of part-time people, because we had more of a consistent business instead of the up and down. So that was one thing that we did. The second thing, we kept thinking, okay, we might have gotten over our heads with this big building. So what can we do to maybe help pay for the electric bills and the property taxes and all of that? How can we cover this high overhead? And in 2007, I stumbled upon an article called Where the Coffee Shop Meets the Cubicle. And it talked about kind of co-working, like the beginning of co-working. For those of you that don't know what co-working is, basically it's just offering a space for people to work. So you know that it's popular for people to take their laptop and go sit in the coffee shop. And we welcome it when people do that. But sometimes it gets annoying for those who are sitting there with their laptop because they can never leave their desk, right? They always have to stay with their stuff. And what we started offering were desks in the back room. And it started out in our storage room that I really pushed my husband to help me clean out. We put a couple desks in the storage room so that people could have a dedicated desk. They could leave their stuff there. They were the only ones with access to that back room. They didn't have to worry about random people coming in and all that. And so that started co-working. And it had always been on our mind that we wanted to do this in order to, well, a couple of reasons. Number one, it would help with the overhead costs. Number two, we just love the idea. And number three, it is a method of entrepreneurship development, which we've always been passionate about, helping other businesses grow. Okay, that was just like a passion of ours. And so in 2018, we did a beta launch for the first phase of the co-working center. And it's located in the same building, but now we shrunk our coffee shop footprint because we only needed that big of a space of what we originally had when we were really busy. And that, was up and down of when that would happen. So we thought, okay, let's shrink the coffee shop space and let's expand the co-working space. So we've had a couple of different phases of renovations. And you can see some of the pictures here, the different spaces. It includes meeting rooms, private office space, dedicated desks. There is a webinar booth where if people want to jump on a phone call, they can in privacy. There's an event, they can rent the cafe for an event space. They have 24/7 access, and it's networking opportunity for those who are part of the co-working center. And I'm excited to say that right now, we are completely maxed out. So everything has been rented. We have about, how many offices?
That's 3, 4,
8, 6,
8, 3 closed, and then 4 closed.
Yeah, so about 6 to 8 offices. We have about 6 to 8 desks. We have a meeting room, and then some people they don't have a dedicated desk, but they have a membership, so they can come in and use whatever space is available whenever they need to meet with a client or something like that.
So we even have daily desks.
Yeah, and daily desks. People stop by when they're in town, from out of town, and they just want a place to work for the day. So that's what we've been doing with the co-working center. And we are currently working with getting bids to renovate the second floor now, which is about another 6,000 square feet. That'll be completely used as co-working space. And we're also doubly excited about that because it hasn't been used since the 80s. So that's very exciting. And it's kind of funny to look at what's up there. So if anyone wants a tour, let me know and I'll show you what it looked like in the 80s before we remodel it all. All right. Okay, so then one of the next questions, number 3, is how are my customers buying today? And do I need to change my strategy on how to reach customers? Now, I know it's been controversial, and we acknowledge that our hours have been so small. So we're currently at 7:30 to 2:30, Monday through Friday. Now, that started during COVID, so that was definitely because of the pandemic. But once we started coming out of the pandemic, we really wanted to protect our team, because our team is what keeps things going. So when we're open a ton of hours and the managers are trying to deal with a shortage of workers, that is very stressful. Okay. So unfortunately, I mean, we would love to have more hours to allow people to come in and enjoy coffee. And we hope that maybe one day we'll be able to expand a little bit on those hours. But we felt like it was more important that we protect our full-time people so they're not stretched too thin. And with the state of hiring right now and finding people to work, that would have just been a constant battle for them. So that's why we kept our hours short. And that allowed us to look at new ways that customers are buying. And thankfully, that has really ramped up of how different ways of buying versus just coming in during open hours.
Our staff itself changed a lot too. I mean, we went from
Yeah.
a team of what, 15?
Yeah,
Down
so
to a team of 5.
it also reduced some overhead as well, because we had 15 to 20 employees before, and now we have 5 full-time employees and a few part-time employees. So a couple trends that have been happening. I know that you are all familiar with Amazon. Now they are up to almost 40% of all e-commerce sales, which kind of boggles the mind. DoorDash is also huge. So DoorDash has been growing rapidly. And just this year, they reported 35% sales growth. Okay, so we're now using these tools to get more customers. The great thing about these tools is it mitigates another weakness of the market, and that is people trying to park and come in and, you know, finding us and being inconvenient and all of those things. None of that matters with DoorDash, right? It doesn't matter how bad access to your location is. You can still order through DoorDash. And with Amazon, we just want to go where the people are, to be honest with you. You know, I have a love-hate relationship with Amazon, but when they've captured 40% of the e-commerce market, it's hard to avoid them.
We're actually now a top seller on DoorDash too.
Oh, okay. So we're a top seller on DoorDash. That's awesome. Some other trends, and this is something that you should do for your industry often, is look at what is happening with your customer buying patterns. So right now, 96% of Americans shop online, but 65% of their shopping budget is still spent in store. So the brick and mortar model is still important. There's still people going into stores. You don't want to just throw that away. You just have to realize that that's slowly shrinking and e-commerce is rapidly growing. Then this other graph here shows a percentage of sales. So let's see, the green shows retail and restaurant sales. I'm sorry, the percentage of e-commerce for retail and restaurant sales. So in 2021, almost 12% of total sales for the retail and restaurant industry were online. And that obviously has grown rapidly from 4% in 2012 to almost 12% now. And it's going to continue to climb. So this is a trend that we definitely want to be prepared for. And what we have to do is not be everything to everybody, but focus on those products that work well in the e-commerce market. In our case, it's our coffee beans, so shipping bags of coffee, either whole bean or ground. And then it's also the gift boxes that we offer that are for all occasions like sympathy, birthday, Mother's Day is huge, Christmas is huge. And these are gift boxes that you can send to people instead of like a bouquet of flowers or shipping them a gift. All right, so the last thing that we're looking at, what other trends are my customers embracing besides their buying trends, so how they buy, what other things are happening with the customers? So here's some trends that are kind of happening. There's tons of them, right? And it'll change by industry. So I just picked a few. Work from home. People have not gone back to the office the same level that they were in 2019. Working from home is much bigger. And you know what? That also hurts lunch business in terms of in-person lunch, because when do you go out to eat? Most of the time is when you have to go into the office. So that has also encouraged the growth of DoorDash and Grubhub and place delivery services. Embracing local, people are more interested in supporting local and independent businesses. It's a small percentage, but you know, it can be significant when you're looking at it nationwide. Millennials want experiences instead of products. And so we've tried to develop some subscription boxes for our coffee. We have the coffee experience subscription box, which we're just now launching. Another trend, there's employee shortage. So you have to work smart in terms of how you structure your team. And then inflation is, of course, a trend. So you have to look at trends and embrace those that fit your mission. Don't go outside of your mission to try to follow a trend. Like, you know, there's trends of different kinds of styles on Instagram and Facebook where influencers have set these style trends. Not probably that interested in the style trends. Could that work for another coffee company? Probably, but we like to have our own style. And then do the trends have staying power? So don't jump on board with the trends. I remember when my son, when he was in junior high, when the fidget spinners were a huge trend. So I went on Amazon, I ordered him a fidget spinner because, you know, he begged me to. And I thought, okay, this will arrive quickly. Well, I didn't notice that I had ordered one with like a 5-week delivery. Literally by the time it arrived, the fidget spinner trend had ended. So there are some very short-term trends, so be careful.
Work from home is also how we get onboarding blocks.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so the work from home trend also encouraged, so work from home trend encouraged employers to want to send gifts to their new hires. And so we have a new hire gift box, we have an onboarding gift box, things like that. So those trends helped us in our gift basket business. Just a couple last things, and then I'll be happy to answer questions. Define a mission statement that flexes. So I've noticed with some businesses, their mission statement is so specific that when the industry changes, it doesn't fit their business anymore. Our mission statement, we actually did redefine it during COVID, is connecting people through expertly crafted coffee, food, and unique gifts. So that works for a brick and mortar model, that works for an online model. It even fits in with our coworking center. So that our mission is actually trying to connect people. And that really is what we love. That is why we do what we do. We love to see people build relationships and work together, et cetera. So make sure that your company has a mission statement that isn't too stuck to one business model. And then stay true to your values. Our values are relationships, sustainability, community, integrity, and creativity. So no matter what trends you're following, you really need to stay true to your values. You don't want to go outside of what you have decided is important. And yeah, this is a fun picture, goofy picture. We have an even goofier picture that I didn't show that one of our team. So just in summary, we went through kind of our process of assessing and adjusting our business model. And it was not this formal when we went through it. We were just figuring things out. And of course, this took 19 years. So it's a continual process. But we looked at the strengths and weaknesses of the business model. Are there ways to mitigate those weaknesses? How are my customers buying today? And what trends are my customers embracing? And this can apply to any industry, not just retail. So thank you very much. Here are ways to contact me. I'm happy to share slides if anyone is interested. I'll also publish the slides on my website, and feel free to reach out. So if anyone has questions, I'll kind of monitor the chat. Or can people also speak, Nicole, or is everyone muted?
I'm looking at that right now.
Okay.
I hope they're all muted, but I
Oh.
will allow everybody to be able to talk. Oh no, they're able to talk. They weren't muted.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so, feel free. Thank you for listening to our story a little bit. And we're still trying to figure it out. So it's not like we haven't just arrived. We're still figuring things out as we go.
So much in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you being here and for sharing your information. It's very educational, and you did a great job, and we really appreciate you being here. And like she said, this is also being recorded. She's going to post the slides on our website, and we can also send those out to you as well. So thank you for joining us today, Jennifer, and thank you, Shakely and Perry Protect, for allowing this to happen. And I can't believe that it's been almost 20 years. So next year you're celebrating an anniversary, which is awesome. And congratulations.
Thank you. And we hope to make it a big celebration.
Oh yeah. So let us know. We'd like to be a part of it.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you. Everybody enjoy your day.
Thank you. Bye.